Welcome to episode 1204 of The Sleeper in the Bus. I am Justin Mason, joined as always on stage by Jason Collette. How you doing, my friend?
Hey, I'm still standing. I haven't been punched in the face today, so that's good news. Clean shaven face for the first time in a while. But yeah, how you doing, man?
I am patiently waiting to see if the Guardians and the White Sox have another brawl here. Currently, the top of half the inning went uneventful, and so far, no hitting of Stephen Kwan. So we'll see if Jose Ramirez gets plunked here in a minute. I will give you my live reaction if it does go down. But man, what a fight! That was a real fight. That wasn't even like, and we're going to talk about it here in a second. So might as well jump in. We're going to talk about a bunch of FAAB. We're also going to talk about some news and notes first. We'll start with that Tim Anderson and Jose Ramirez fight. A great fight. I mean, that was a real fight, not a typical baseball fight that we're used to, quote unquote fight that we're used to seeing. Oh my God. And he just dropped the easiest of pop flies, though was able to then get him out at second. So, yeah, so we'll see. I think Jose Ramirez is up to bat right now. So we will see. Both guys are likely going to be suspended. Right?
Yeah.
And then somehow Eloy Jimenez gets hurt in this in this melee. I don't know if he'd been dealing with a heel issue. I don't know if he aggravated it, trying to hold people back, or if he injured something else. You're obviously not doing anything with these guys. Would you drop Tim Anderson at this point, though?
He's been tough to carry this far. I mean, he's going to be. I was talking with Craig last night via text. We were talking like what the suspension is going to be. For me, I would say it's going to be longer for Anderson as the instigator. Plus, it looked like he made contact with the umpire, trying to push him out of the way. And was it Bucknor? I didn't see exactly who it was, but he's like treated it like a hockey match. Like, all right, boys, go ahead. And they dropped. So I could see him getting like a 7. I don't know how you like try to appeal that. Be like, no, I didn't really mean to put my hands up. And you know, after all, can I get a game knocked away since I showed I have a glass jaw and fell over? But I mean, this is the fantasy relevance of it all. We're looking at a guy who could be out for an entire scoring period, who's already been killing your team. Ramirez, he could be out half a scoring period. You assume he's going to get 3 games out of this. And then whatever happened with Eloy, I mean, I really don't know what happened unless he stepped on somebody's foot, because he was in the middle of the second melee. And then he does, like, you see him hopping out of you can't see exactly what he did, but he started hopping out like he hurt his leg. And it's like, oh man, of all guys to get hurt, that's the one that gets hurt, just be standing around. So I don't know. But Anderson, yeah, at this point, what are you carrying him for? He's not stealing bases. He's hit 1 home run. And what's the point at this point?
Yeah, I think I mean, if you're still holding on to Anderson, you might want to just drop him, because I think both these guys could get suspended for the entire scoring period. And that's really, really unfortunate for Jose Ramirez, people rostering Jose Ramirez right now, because he is a stud, has played like a stud, and the Guardians really need him. I mean, they're missing a ton of pieces right now, aside from the ones that they traded away in Ahmad Rosario and Josh Bell. Josh Naylor hits the IL as well. They're not going to call up Kyle Manzardo until at least mid-August, if at all, because I think they have to wait till mid-August to retain rookie eligibility coming into next season. So, I mean, this is kind of a bare-bones team, a team you actually might want to stream against this week if you have that option.
Yeah, I mean, with the way that lineup is situated right now, why even pit that? If they're gonna, you figure Ramirez is going to appeal a suspension, so he's going to get to play while he appeals, but he's going to get something out of this. And then at that point, why pitch to him? I mean, they got Cole Calhoun in that lineup right now. That with Jose, they got Oscar Gonzalez, who we talked about last week, as the guy hitting cleanup now most days. Why even pitch to Ramirez? You look at the lineup, you'd be like, that guy. Don't let that guy hurt me. Unless he comes up with bases loaded, pitch around him, see what happens. And if he's not in that lineup, like you said, Stream City. Let's say he's out this coming weekend, and they're like, nope, we can't. He's going to be out. He's got to sit down. I don't care who the pitcher is. I'm taking my chances against that pretty ugly Cleveland lineup.
Well, and we're going to talk about a couple of the guys that you could potentially stream against them in our FAAB section, because Hyun Jin Ryu goes up against Cleveland tomorrow as the beginning of a two-step, and then Zach Littell, who we'll talk about again in the in that FAAB section, is going to face them on Saturday. So some pretty interesting streaming options, for you potentially. So let's talk about the next piece of news. That's Jazz Chisholm hurts his hamstring. Obviously, you're not dropping Chisholm. Chisholm has the, unless he goes on the IL and it looks like he's going to miss an extended period of time. He's got a ton of upside. But, man, this guy cannot stay healthy. What are you doing with Jazz Chisholm next year? Because
not drafted him in the 4th round. He was a 4th or 5th round guy. They're saying this latest one is just cramps. So they're day to day. But still, this isn't the first time we're like, oh, we're watching it. Then he's hit the IL. But, yeah, this was the concern with Chisholm coming into the year, was could he stay on the field? And he has not. So you would hope that we all take a look at it differently and say, look, we can't spend the 4th, 5th round pick on the upside, because, yeah, if he could stay on the field, he's 2020, 25 possibility. But the fact that he's missing so much time this year should pull him down. And maybe you get to the 5th round, somebody else is willing to take the risk. I'm not ready to put him into the bucket of saying, oh, he's burned me once, he's dead to me. Nobody's dead to me, but it's like, this is the 2nd year in a row that I've been on the Chisholm wagon and have been left wanting more. So he's not dead to me, but he is definitely going to be moving down my personal rankings this winter.
Yeah, I think that is probably the right call. I was already out on him coming into this season. I just couldn't understand why people were willing to spend the high draft picks they were, considering his injury history. I'll probably feel the same way. I mean, unless he has a huge drop in the ADP, I just don't see that happening, considering, I mean, he's just a fun player to root for. We love watching him play when he's playing, and he is electric on a per-game basis, but it's so hard to lose that production throughout the year. So I probably will be out on Jazz Chisholm again. Probably should have talked about Josh Naylor and Kyle Manzardo just in connection with them. I already said I think Manzardo is probably not coming up until at the earliest mid-August. So you've got another week or two before that happens. Are you dropping Josh Naylor, who's out on the IL with an oblique injury, for the next 3 to 6 weeks?
So we talked a little bit about last week how I wrote the article about when guys come back from injury, and obliques tended to be right on target when they believe they're going to come back. But the fact that, especially for hitters, when they say 3 to 6 weeks, though, man, that's yikes. I mean, he's not, you lose him for August, and now you're into September. So once he comes back, I would expect him to be able to pick up where he left off. That said, is 4 to 5 weeks of Naylor worth more than 8 to 9 weeks of what I can put in there for a replacement? That's the question you have to ask yourself. I have this question to ask. I lost Naylor in a home AL league. I've lost him in at least one other league, and it's tough. I mean, he's the RBI. He had 79 RBIs this year. He's been the RBI machine for Cleveland. Whatever Ramirez hasn't driven in, Naylor has. And so that's the toughest part of this. We have to ask yourself, what's possible to stream on the waiver wire, or what do you have on your bench that you can rotate in that you can use there? So I would say it's a case-by-case basis, but I certainly can understand if somebody cuts. If you're in a shallower league, a 12-team where you have options, I can understand it. In a 15-team league where you may not have the options, I understand, trying to find something else to plug the hole, and then hopefully it's closer to 3 weeks than it is 6 weeks.
Yeah, I think I'm probably dropping him in most mixed leagues. I mean, the Guardians have already said they're going to be very conservative with him. And so I think it's probably going to be closer to that 6-week timeline, and that puts you mid-September. And I don't know. I just don't think he's worth holding on to at that point. So I would move on. I think stashing Kyle Manzardo probably isn't going to be worth it necessarily. He hasn't been great in AAA to begin with, and there's no guarantee the Guardians even pull him up. I think that it's much more likely we see like Mason win before we see Kyle Manzardo. So I'm probably just ignoring this whole situation, getting rid of Naylor and moving on to somewhere else.
Well, how about one? I was just looking now. One of my leagues, I have no option. I have to use Nick Pratto off the IL to replace Josh Naylor because that's the only guy I have left. Everybody else has been either waived or currently hurt, and so I have to take one of those guys because it's a draft and hold. Yay!
Yeah,
that
is a bummer.
It's like Gene Segura, currently unemployed. Bobby Dahlbeck, minors. Nick Pratto, minors, are hurt, and somebody else. I'm trying to look at whatever else I have. Everybody else is second base or shortstop. I've got no other moves I can make to move somebody around at third base or corner. So that's it.
All right. Well, next thing on the docket, Walker Buehler is going to start a minor league rehab assignment. Do we care for this year?
No.
Okay.
You know my stance on this. No.
Yeah, I'm lockstep with you. For those who don't know, guys that come back from Tommy John, I typically don't care about them in their first season back. And I'll definitely be watching it because it'll influence where I kind of rank him coming into 2024. But and it's nice to see him get back on the mound for a little bit prior to next season. But I don't care this year.
I mean, just a reminder, he had we're not even a year removed from his surgery date. He had his surgery August 23rd. This is very aggressive to me. Very aggressive. He comes back, it may be in like 1 to 2 inning stints. I don't care.
Yeah. Where will you be on him next year? Let's say he finishes the year healthy. He looks, decent enough in these 1 to 2 inning stints that we likely will see him at. Where are you at on Walker Buehler coming into 2024?
Probably about 75% of where the rest of the marketplace is. Okay. If he falls to me, fine. Not somebody I'm targeting.
Okay. Yeah, I think that sounds about right. Jose Urquidy rejoins the Astros rotation, which means JP France goes to the bullpen. Are you picking up Urquidy and are you dropping JP France?
If I'm in leagues where I'm chasing wins, yes, I'll take my chances on it. I know it's been kind of spotty for Urquidy this year, but if I need wins, I need wins. And the Astros can certainly provide it like that. You just got to hope Urquidy's not giving up all the home runs that he's allowed this year.
Yeah, I don't like Jose Urquidy. I've never understood the industry's love of him.
I blame Eno.
Yeah, no, I mean, I love Eno. I think he's, right a hell of a lot more often I am on pitching. So, but I've just never understood. Dude's a hit factory. Like he gives up so many effing hits. And I just don't. I don't even understand why they're even making this move. They should be putting France, or keeping France in the rotation. Who I know the underlying metrics don't support what he's done, but he's pitched really, really well, and maybe he can outrun those metrics for a little while longer. So this is a little bit of a mind-boggling move for me. I think I do drop France in 10s and 12s and 15s. I may keep him because he may end up just being the follower to Urquidy and like picking up the wins that Urquidy tends to blow if he is only going like 3-4 innings in a lot of games. So I think in 15-team leagues, I'm probably going to try to still hold on to France, but everywhere else, I dropped him today in our Yahoo 12-team Sleeper in the Bus Yahoo League. So the next item is Liam Hendriks gets Tommy John. This kind of came out of nowhere. He was working his way back, and then all of a sudden they announced he had surgery. So, I mean, obviously something went wrong in the rehab, and he is going to be missing all of next season because of this. Right now, their closer is Gregory Santos. He is on bereavement leave right now. You expect Santos to hold down the job rest of the way?
Yeah, I do. All what did I say last week? 5 saves.
Yeah,
rest of the way. I still believe that holds up. It's just really shitty news for Hendriks, who's already gone through enough this year.
Yeah, absolutely. Hopefully he can come back strong in
2025. Contractual. Hold on a second, because I think next year is his free agent year.
Oh, that's really bad.
Which is going to be really, I'm almost certain that next year is the last year. Yeah, that's the other side thing of this. is they have a club option of $15 million for next year.
They're not.
If I'm the White Sox, how do you pick that up?
I mean, I don't know you can. I mean, maybe there's a team out there that says, hey, we'll give you a 2-year deal, with hopes that you're going to be fine, in the same way like Ken Giles got when he was coming back from
that worked out well. Huh?
Yeah. And Garrett Richards got one too. That one worked out a little bit better.
Did it with Nathan Eovaldi, and that worked out really well for him. I mean, he sat out all of 16 and then came back in 17 or 17. I forget the exact 2 years, but it worked out well for him. But yeah, this is the really shitty part, is he has a $15 million club option. And I don't, there's no way they're picking that up.
No, absolutely not. That's just really crappy timing.
$15 million buyout, which is good. I mean, that's the good part for Hendriks in this situation. If it's a club option. It just says, I'm looking at Spot Track. It says 2024 club option includes a $15 million buyout, deferred at $1.5 million from 2024 to 2033.
No. I mean, at least he's getting a little bit of cash, so maybe long term. But all right. I mean, I don't think we need to talk about his 2025 value, so we can move on. Tyler Glasnow was scratched with back spasms today. Are you worried about this? Because this is really troubling for me. You and I were talking about this prior to air. Is I don't have a fantastic rotation in Tout Wars to begin with, and Glasnow was one of the guys that was holding things together for me, along with Joe Musgrove, who's now on the IL. What are you doing with Tyler Glasnow? Are you worried?
I'm dying a little on the inside, is what I'm doing. I mean, on the heels of the news that Shane McClanahan is flying to California to get other opinions on his elbow, which reads terribly because that's where Dr. Neil Atresh, I think that's how you pronounce his name, that's where he's based out of. So put 2 and 2 together on where this story is likely going. At least with Glasnow, the news, they did a interview before the game, and Kevin Cash was, they think they caught this in time type of thing with Glasnow, and that he could possibly pitch in the St. Louis series, which is in Tampa Bay this week. They have Monday off as travel day, so Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. So there's a chance that Glasnow could pitch in that series with that. So, any bad pitching news is bad. I mean, they don't really have any other. They sent Taj Bradley down for a reason, and they've, Zach Littell, who we'll talk about in a little bit. It was part of, they've plugged that gap a little bit, and they acquired Aaron Savali, but they're running out of options. And so, I'm concerned, but hopefully it's just one of these things where it's back spasms and it's one and done. But this is what we've had: hand cramps in his glove hands a couple of times. It's like, it's always been something with Glasnow. Just a reminder, plenty of upside, but the downside in the how much he actually pitches is very real year after year after year. Yeah.
I'm always worried when there's an injury with Glasnow. That's unfortunately the case. Hopefully this one isn't as big of an issue as it is with Joe Musgrove, who hits the IL with shoulder soreness or inflammation. They did MRI. They said there's no structural damage, which is good news. But he's going to be shut down for the next 3 weeks with the hopes that he could be back at some point this season. This doesn't sound good at all in terms of his fantasy value rest of the way. Are you dropping Glasnow everywhere?
Dropping Musgrove, you mean?
Sorry, dropping Musgrove.
Yeah. If you're shutting down a guy for 3 weeks, that means then they have to resume a throwing program. Yep. So that's probably another 1 to 2 weeks. 2 weeks. Yeah. That's a long time. Now I would say the only league I have Musgrove in is a draft and hold. I can't, I have, but he is now I was just looking at my bench in that league where we have 27 bench spots. I have 14 guys on the IL in that draft and hold. So it's like I'm running out of options on pitching side. And I have Glenn Otto and Tyler Wells and Sean Armstrong and Jeremiah Estrada and Cody Morris are the only pitchers I have left I can use with that. So I would, if I had the opportunity to drop Musgrove at this point, I would have to. With pitcher, you're talking 3 weeks. That's 5-6 starts plus the throw at 6 or 7. I'd rather take my options of what else is out there than hold that spot at this point. It's just too late in the season. I say this as somebody who has been holding a guy that just got activated today in Brandon Woodruff in a 12 team league. I've held him this whole time, and he's back today on my bench because I didn't trust Milwaukee enough to activate him for Sunday, so I left him down on that. But I can't take this chance with Musgrove and wait it out and hope that it gets better.
Yeah, I mean, 3 weeks gets us to the last week of September, and then
August.
if you add, last week August, and then apparently all over the place today, and then if you add, let's say 2 weeks, that puts you around September 10th. So then you get 4 weeks left of the season. Like that's a really difficult decision. I think it really depends on what you can do bench wise, right? Like if it's an NFBC, I think you probably need to drop him unless you just have no other injuries. Or if your IL is full with guys that you'd rather, hold on to that are going to be back sooner. But this is a really, really tough spot.
I think it also depends on where San Diego is in the playoffs.
Right? Yeah, I think you shut them down. Yeah,
if they're doing poorly, then shut them down because they just gave him a brand new contract.
Yeah,
just did this, so they exercising caution here would be the best play to be like, hey, you know what? We got another $80 million invested in that right arm. Do we really want to push it in September and have you further risk and have the problem? So for me, I would lean for him not pitching again this season. Just looking at the long-term picture.
They're currently 3 games behind the final wild card spot, but with 3 teams in front of them for that final wild card spot, not including Cincinnati, who owns that final wild card spot. So you got to battle 4 teams when you're 3 back already. I think there's a really good chance that they're probably out of this by the time Musgrove is able to come back. And so I do think that unless you are stashing him on an IL, like in Tout Wars, I think I'm just going to stash him. I've done unlimited IL there, right? But in NFBC, I'm going to have to make a really, really tough decision today. You did mention Brandon Woodruff returns today. I mean, full go, right?
Full go.
All right.
Full go. He's back. He's looked well in his rehab starts. I'm putting him right back in my lineup this coming week.
I am
as well. I've held on to him this long. Damn straight I'm going to use him the rest of the season.
Yep. Let's move into the FAAB section. We're going to start with Hyun Jin Ryu, who gets to start a 2-week week this week at Cleveland. So with potentially no Jose Ramirez, though I assume Jose Ramirez will appeal whatever suspension is levied, which means he would probably get to actually play in this first game on Monday against Hyun Jin Ryu, and then home versus the Cubs. Any interest in Hyun Jin Ryu?
Yes, I would say. Yeah, I know last week I was like, coming back from it. But again, this is Cleveland. And even if Jose Ramirez does play, this is the guy. You just pitch around him. Hyun Jin Ryu can certainly do that. He can certainly pitch around one guy. So yes, if you're going to use him, this is the type of matchup that you want to use him against. And that means he's got a second. That would mean Ryu would also have the Cubs on the back end of it, which is a bit of a risk. Depending on how the wind's blowing. We've seen what Chicago's been able to do offensively a few times here of late. So it's a wash of a week in that regard. Whatever benefit he has pitching Cleveland, he's got to absorb the Chicago. Although the game with Chicago is in Toronto. So rules the weather piece of it out. So, but that's still a potent lineup that they're putting out there these days. So yeah, I'd roll with them and just hope he just pitches around Ramirez and can handle the rest of the lineup.
I think I'm probably skipping this one. I think there's just so many good 2 starts that are available off the wire this week that I think I probably want to go in a different direction. Maybe Ryu is at the bottom of kind of my bid list, but I'm kind of hoping I don't end up with Ryu. I think that he's one of those guys that I don't think he offers the upside that he used to. And Toronto hasn't been playing particularly well as of late. So what is the win potential necessarily? I don't think it is what it normally is. So I think I would probably skip this one personally. One that I'm not going to skip that's probably going to be at the top of my bid list this week is Cole Ragans. Ragans is the guy Paul and I talked about earlier in the week. And we said, if he has a good start, the bids are going to be higher. He had a good start. He now gets a 2 start at Boston and home versus St. Louis. Where are you on Cole Ragans?
I would say about the same with Ryu. The start with Boston is tough, but then the St. Louis is a nice start for him. With any Kansas City pitcher, it's always the concern of can they get the offensive support to get the win. I've watched Ragans pitch a couple of times. I like what I see there. I just don't like the circumstance and the matchup. The Boston one concerns me because that team can do some damage at Fenway. If this was both starts in Kansas City, I would feel differently. But the Fenway start, I want to pass. I'm not as optimistic as you are.
Yeah, I've been really impressed with what he's done so far in the minors and in the majors since coming over to Kansas City. He's got a really good opportunity. I think this is one of those where you can stream and just hold. And so, yeah, I think I'm going for him. He, like I said, probably at the top of my bid list this week. The aforementioned Zach Littell is going to get a start versus Cleveland. Pitched well. I was not a believer when we talked about him earlier in the week. I'm still not a believer, and so I'm probably not picking him up for this start. Are you?
I picked him up in Ale Tout last week, and I had him as a conditional bid in a couple of other leagues, but the pitcher just before was the guy I ended up with. So with Littell's it's a tough because I've seen him. He's a strike thrower. I'll put it that way.
Mm-hmm.
He is a pitch to fate guy. He can get some swing and miss with the splitter, but to me, it's a pitch to fate. And so we're talking about a lot of stuff in play. When he does make mistakes, they get hit hard, but he does throw a lot of strikes and uses the defense behind him. So that part of it's working well. But the line between not even dominant, survival and disaster is tough for him to navigate. And so far, like I thought he did a really good job in his outing against Detroit on Friday. And the one before that, I mean, he's done the job the team has asked him to do. That said, it's pitch to fate, and there's not a lot of swing and miss this week. The matchup will be St. Louis, which is a nice matchup, and then Cleveland. So I believe I don't think is it a 2-start week for him? I don't believe it is.
It is not.
No, it's just a single start. So he'll have the St. Louis start. So I would go with him for the St. Louis start because that's just not a lineup that's doing much these days.
But it's a Cleveland start.
Oh, it's Cleveland start. Well, so I'd still go with him because there's a good chance that Ramirez will have been suspended at this point.
Yeah, he should be by that point. Yeah, I can make I can make the argument to use him for this start, but after this, like I'm trying to see where he might line up for his next start after this. So
the Giants.
1, 2, 3, 4. No, at the Angels. I would not want to start him there. So I think if you're going to stream him, it is definitely a short-term stream, and then you drop and move on to someone else. But I'm a little bit more skeptical. I remember Zach Littell as a Giant. Maybe that's coloring my my view of him a little bit too much, but he's just extremely hittable. I just think this is like literal bottom of the barrel stuff that the Rays are having to do because of all their injuries, and I don't want to scrape the bottom of the barrel if I don't have to. Speaking of scraping the bottom of the Rays barrel, Yonny Chirnos, who was waived by the Rays, I'm sure they wish they could have him back right now. He lines up for a 2-start in for the Braves. He pitched fairly well in his last start, but this is mostly about matchups. He's going at Pittsburgh, at the New York Mets, two offenses that are not very good right now in very good home pitching parks. Are you streaming Yonny Chirnos, who has the Atlanta Braves offense supporting him?
Yeah, I would say it's the matchup, and like you said, it's the Atlanta offense supporting him. So if you look at the outing that he had, the first out, he's had 2 outings for Atlanta. On the 28th, he went 3 2/3, allowed 4 runs, 3 strikeouts, no homers. And then against the Angels, 5 innings, 6 hits, 3 runs, 5 strikeouts, 1 walk, no homers. And that helped. His last outing with Tampa Bay, he allowed 3 home runs to Kansas City. So it's like he's on, and getting back to the pitch to fate comment, that's the line between survival and disaster. There were times when Chirinos would come out and could do the pitch to fate thing because he just doesn't have a lot of swing and miss. He doesn't have the same velocity they used to have, the same movement. So it was like, okay, let's throw strikes, but if anything were to miss, he could get in some trouble. And Kansas City got to him twice because he had a start in the end of June where he allowed 8 earned runs in 5 1/3 to Kansas City. And then they came back in again and gave up the 4 2/3, 4 hits and 3 runs, all 3 solo shots against Kansas City again. So it is a pitch to fate concept for him. That said, with that Atlanta offense, who seems like they're having a 5-run first inning every game, there's a good chance if he goes 5, he could get a win. And he did that in his last time out against a pretty good Angels lineup. Not great at this point, but just pretty good Angels lineup. But he got the win in that situation. So by the matchup, yes, let's go with Chirnos this week, but be prepared for some ratio damage.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is one where like you're pretty much going for it if you're win seeking. It's 2 really good home parks. Pittsburgh's been the best park to pitch in baseball this year. The Mets have been up there as well, and you got that Atlanta offense behind you. So, like, if you're win seeking, Yonny Chirnos could be available in a lot of leagues for you to stream right here. If you are looking for strikeouts or looking to keep pristine ratios, it might be a lot. I mean, you're definitely not going to get the strikeouts, but the ratios might be ugly as well. So,
right.
I would be very careful if you're in any sort of issue with your ratios. But like I said, if you're win seeking right now, and a lot of people are, Yonny Chirnos has the opportunity to get 2 wins against 2 bad teams. All right. Moving on over to Adrian Houser. Hauser's pitched decently well as of late, and now gets a home start versus the Rockies. Are you streaming Adrian Houser?
Yeah, I've done that a few times with him this year in TGFBI and even in the RotoWire OC. I've used Houser a couple of times up and down when he's been out there. So this is a good matchup, and I would take the chance again this week.
Yeah, I think I would. I mean, anytime you get the Rockies on the road, that's usually a pretty good way to stream. It's not the best of home parks, but it's definitely much better in Coors. So I think Hauser is a guy that I've loved in the past. He's just not quite turned into the pitcher I thought he might. But I think he's good enough to use in a short-term streaming situation here.
Oh, let's not forget. Let's look at the Rockies' reloaded lineup now that they've gotten rid of everything. There's not much there that you're scared about outside of. I'm still a big Nolan Jones believer, but and at home it's a different story. But there's not much there to be scared about right now.
Yeah, he would line up for a start next week at the Dodgers. So it's clearly a short-term.
Hell, I benched Blake Snell yesterday in TGFBI. I benched Blake Snell this week because of that Dodgers start. And yeah, you got 8 strikeouts, but there was a lot of ratio damage and it was a no decision. So I'm glad I benched him.
Yeah, that probably is the probably was the right decision there. Last starting pitcher on the docket is Dakota Hudson. And this again is it looks like they've changed the start to at Tampa Bay. Oh, I thought he was going to be at Kansas City. I'm not starting Dakota Hudson at Tampa Bay.
I don't like him anyhow, but watch he'll come out.
I will say though that he lines up next week for, if I'm correct, a 2-start week, home versus Oakland and then home versus the New York Mets.
So question, where is he? So if I'm looking at the probable starters, they're showing Mikolas Hudson's got the wins. I'm sorry, I completely overlooked the X.
Yeah,
he's got the Wednesday start against Tampa Bay.
Okay. Which will line him up for 2 starts against Oakland and the Mets. Would you pick him up to bench him this week, but take that Oakland Mets 2-step?
No.
Okay.
No.
I'm not a big Dakota Hudson fan either, so I can understand making the play, because those are 2 winnable games for the Cardinals. But ultimately, I don't love him enough or even like him enough to stash him for a week. So,
if you believe in the last outing, he allowed 3 runs on 2 hits and 3 walks, struck out 7 Twins. Which, I mean, who hasn't struck out 7 Twins here? So he got the job done in that particular outing. But again, that's Minnesota. There's a lot of Hudson is not a strikeout pitcher, and he was able to get the job done at least in that particular outing. But no, I've never been. He's also another pitch to fate guy. And if you can run into a lineup with a lot of swing and miss, maybe he can do something like this again, but this is definitely not his track record. I mean, he had 7 strikeouts. He had 6 strikeouts in his previous 3 outings. Then he put up 7 in 1 outing against Minnesota.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think I'm probably passing, but I can understand people wanting to. So it is a very good 2-step next week. It's not one that I'm necessarily going to be on board. And speaking of St. Louis, Jojo Romero is factoring into the 9th inning in St. Louis. Any interest in him?
No. I mean, this is the bad team. There's not going to be much there. You still got some of the other pieces there. You still got Gallegos, Palante. No, I'm not very interested in Romero unless it's a matchup specific thing that they want to bring him in as a lefty. But other than that, no interest.
Yeah, I think that's fair. Not much on the wire for saves right now. Plus, I think Helsley will be back at some point.
I kind of say it's not NL League specific, but look at Bo Brisky. What's Alex Lang? Yeah, here's me rolling my eyes. The Rays accepted 3 walks in the 9th inning, and nobody scored yesterday in a 4-2 loss. But Lang walked 3 guys, and they pulled him, and then Bo Brisky came in and looked good. I saw Bo Brisky pitch twice this past weekend. He definitely has the velocity. It's a bit of a short extension type of delivery, but it's got some deception to it. And the fastball, he struck out Isaac Paredes on a fastball that was well up and out of the zone, but Paredes saw it out of the hand, thought it was going to be at the top of the zone. It was only 3 baseballs above that. So if you want to take a spec on a situation there, that's something you can look at. I know Jason Foley has pitched well, and Lang has pitched decently at times, but Bo Brisky's now come in twice in leverage situations that I've seen, and I've liked what I've seen. So there's a name for you.
All right. Next, let's move over to the offensive side of things. Talk about Curtis Mead, who made his major league debut for the Rays. I think the question always is with the Rays is he going to play full time? So are you going to be aggressive this week on Curtis Mead anywhere?
He's starting today. He started yesterday. He did not start in his debut. He got called up Friday, didn't start. And so it's like when I try to figure out where is he going to play, the easy option for me would be Harold Ramirez, who's been in mostly of a massive slump of late. And Ramirez is sitting today. And even Luke Raley, who for the most part has been in a big slump. So at a minimum, Mead could come up and take the bats against lefties there for that particular situation. So I would have to see how that all shakes out with that. At first, I thought that this is back when I thought the McClanahan news was precautionary, that they were just going to call up Mead for a couple of days because they didn't need another pitcher and they were going to use that. But now that we know that McClanahan's flying over to California to get other opinions, and we know that news is probably not going to end well, then this would be an up to stay type of situation where they didn't, the Rays didn't make an acquisition for a bat at the deadline, looking at, okay, we've got Aranda. If we can find a place for him to play, we've got Mead. They did trade Manzardo on the pitching side. They've got Colby White and Andrew Kittredge getting ready to come back in August at some point to add to the bullpen. So they're looking to use from within. So my belief is Mead is up to stay. Is he going to play every day? No.
Yeah, it's really hard because I really like Mead as a prospect, but I do wonder if he's going to end up being kind of a better real life guy than he is a fantasy guy, which is a tad bit concerning in the same vein that it looks like Miguel Vargas is a better real life guy maybe than a fantasy guy. That being said, like if you need a little bit of batting average and pop, which is a really, really hard thing to get these days, I don't know that there's going to be another guy that comes up other than maybe, Kyle Manzardo that's going to help kind of fill that. So I think that there are going to be people who are pretty aggressive. I think you're going to need to be pretty aggressive in order to get him. I just don't love it.
If Mead had not been hurt, remember he had a wrist injury earlier in the season. I believe he would have been up sooner than this. The only reason he's being called up this late is because of the injury.
Yeah.
Because he's hit. I mean, when he's been healthy, he's been stinging the baseball for a year and a half now.
Yeah. He hasn't hit. He only hit one July home run in the minors. That's not given me a lot of faith that he's going to provide a lot of power the rest of the way. So I don't think I'm going to be very even though I need some power in some leagues, I don't think I'm going to be overly aggressive. I think it'll be mostly just kind of backup bids. All right. Luis Urias was one of the rated moves at the deadline. The Boston Red Sox traded for him. He'd been kind of just toiling around in the Brewers minor league system. The Red Sox then went on to DFA Christian Arroyo, who's been a big part of their team this year, in order to bring Luis Urias up. Any interest in Urias?
Yeah, slight interest because of that. They did move. Arroyo was out of options, so they've designated him for assignment. We've seen what Urias is capable of doing previously, but we've also seen. Well, I guess we've seen the entire spectrum of where that of how that could play out. They have had. It's going to be curious to see where he's going to play, but I would say
second base. It looks like
AL League interested. 12-team mixed, no. 15-team mixed, no. 18-team mixed, yes. That's kind of where my level of interest is with him. But he certainly has the opportunity to see what's there, and obviously the ballpark will be a nice fit for him and his capabilities if he can rediscover what made him nice to have back in 2021 and briefly in 2022 before it started going south for him.
Here's what I will say. Like, I agree that 10 and 12 team mix, I'm not interested. In a 15-team mix, he's eligible at second, third, and shortstop. Like that, if you just lost Brendan Donovan, Luis Urias fills a lot of holes that like Brendan Donovan was just helping you fill.
That's true.
Now, I don't know what he's going to be, and I don't know when Trevor Story comes back if he's even going to have a job. Like, he may get sent right back down because he's one of the few guys on this team with options. But like, if you need roster flexibility, Luis Urias could be that dude. And he has shown some pretty interesting skills at the major league level before. I know he was pretty atrocious prior to getting sent down in Milwaukee this year, but he was also, coming off of a pretty big injury. So I'm willing to take a gamble if I really need roster flexibility in a 15-team league.
Fair enough.
Let's finish out with Brendan Rodgers. This is a guy that I'm on record as not really liking, thinking I've said over and over and over again, he is overrated for fantasy. He has trouble staying healthy. He doesn't have a ton of pop. It's just, okay pop. And, he doesn't steal any bases, but he plays in Coors, and he's a former top tier prospect. So people love him, including Paul, who's not on today to defend Brendan Rodgers right now.
Well, good. That means we can crash him. Awesome.
Yeah. Are you picking him up? Because he is a middle infield bat with a little bit of pop that's going to play in Coors. Are you picking up Brendan Rodgers?
If I could straight, I mean, the stolen base thing can't be understated. He has as many career steals as Justin and I do.
Yeah.
That's where Brendan Rodgers, that cannot be understated. It's amazing to me that a middle infielder has never stolen a base in his major league career. He has some pop. Yes, if I can have him on the bench and I can play him in games at home, then I will take a chance. And if I'm hurting with injuries, but otherwise, no. I mean, he's had plenty. I would say it doesn't feel like he's not even 27 years old yet. That's the crazy thing about him. It's just, he's not even 27. He's just been on the periphery of the conversation for so long and all the tools, and none of it has come together. None of it has come together as we expected it to. And no. I'm not that excited about it. He's not going to be a primary target for me in free agent activity this weekend. And I'll just have to live in the glory days of what he did in the minor leagues. I remember going to see him in Asheville one time, and the lights went out at that McCormick Field, and so I only got to see one at bat. It's like, cool. That's what he had, 19 home runs in 110 games. It was that year.
Yeah, I mean, the Rockies are on the road all week this week, too. So, like, you're not using him this week. They're all home all week next week. So, if you're picking him up to stash him for next week. And I don't think he's good enough to be, like, just holding him on your bench. I would rather have Luis Urias, because Luis Urias is eligible at 3 different positions to help fill in. So, I think I'd rather have Urias.
Brendan Rodgers is a 290 career hitter at home.
Mm-hmm.
And is a 241 career hitter on the road.
Yeah. I just don't think he is talented. I mean, there's talent obviously there, but I just don't think the production's not going to be worth, having to like pick, sit them on the road and all that. I just think it's not worth it. All right, that's going to wrap us up for this episode. What are you working on? Where can people reach you at?
So I'm working on an article, just about finished with it actually. About some of the changes some of these pitchers have made when they some of the pitchers that were traded at the trade deadline. Some of the changes they've made. I'm not looking at Verlander or Scherzer, like what kind of changes are those guys making? But I took a look at some things like Jordan Montgomery. The Rangers have him throwing a cutter. Like he had thrown like 5 cutters in his previous 10 starts, and all of a sudden the cutter was being used quite a bit in his first Ranger start. Jack Flaherty basically has picked up the Kyle Gibson blueprint from the Orioles, and that went well for him in his first start. Aaron Savali, the Rays, basically said, hey, use these 4 pitches. You're throwing 6, stop throwing the other 2. And then Lance Lynn, folks didn't watch Lance Lynn's first start against the A's. Lefties have killed him all year long. And the Dodgers basically said, just throw fastballs to them, throw in a few changes, but just go fastball heavy, something he never did with the White Sox. And it worked. Lefties got 2 singles off him in 16 plate appearances. He gave up 3 home runs. They were all to the righties, which has been a problem all year, but the lefties had absolutely been murdering this guy. And all of a sudden, this worked. So it's like I'm trying to look at some of the changes with this guy and how we can look at these pitchers for the rest of the season. Because I think I even said this last week. Yeah, I was this close to trying to cut Lance Lynn or trying to trade him off my team in AL Labor because I've taken all that ratio damage along with the strikeouts. And for what? Yeah, the strikeouts were cool, but the ratios have been killing me. And now these with the Dodgers, it's like, okay, now he's off the trade block. I need to keep him. And hopefully something's good there. So I'm taking a look at some of those guys and to see what we can expect. And I think I've got Lucas Giolito and Michael Lorenzen left to write up before that article, and should be live tomorrow.
Nice. You can reach me on pretty much every social media platform. Like I said last week, I've added a bunch of them: Post, Mastodon, Blue Sky, all those, and obviously on Twitter.
You need a link tree like me, man.
I need one, but I also haven't been using my social media quite as much as I normally do. I answer questions when people ask, but haven't been posting as freely as I normally have in years past. I'm going to try to get that going again, probably here in the off season. But right now,
I'm just the same way. I mean, day job's been crazy right now. That's why I'm finishing an article on Sunday. This whole week between that and I had to get went to my annual physical, and they're like, "Hey, you should get the shingles vaccine." I'm like, "Well, yeah, I'm over 50 now, sure." And I did, and that son bitch kicked my ass. I was in like Friday night. I was like, and then I woke up Saturday. I was like, I don't know if I can get out of bed today. And so it took me until about 8:00 last night until I was feeling functional. But so yeah, I went ahead and got round 1 of that done, and it was pretty harsh for me. And but I would rather that than deal with shingles. I remember a family relative had to go through that a few years back, and I was like, yikes, no thanks. So yeah, I had that vaccine done, but everything else came back good.
So that's good.
Yeah.
And then I'm writing Fantasy Pros 3 days a week, Fangraphs 5 days a week, and that is it for me right now. For Jason and myself, thank you for listening. Have a fantastic baseball season.
Thanks, guys.